Alien girls are in a constant state of lactation, and the human is tasked with milking them. When Brad Davis signed up to be an intergalactic equipment technician, he never imagined his work would take him to the edges of the known universe. Yet here he was, disembarking from a shuttle onto the massive Lactation space station, a gleaming metal marvel orbiting the twin stars of the Taurus system. Brad hefted his heavy toolkit over his broad shoulders, his muscles rippling beneath his tight-fitting jumpsuit. At 6 feet each 2 inches with chiseled features and a confident stride, he cut an imposing figure as he made his way through the bustling spaceport. Little did he know, his rugged good looks were already drawing appreciative glances from the station's unique inhabitants. "Welcome to Lactation, human," a melodic voice called out. Brad turned to see a striking lavender-skinned alien woman approaching, her lithe body clad in a form-fitting white uniform that left little to the imagination. "I am Tida, your liaison during your time here. We are so pleased to have a skilled technician of your caliber." "Pleased to meet you, Tida," Brad replied with a friendly smile, trying not to stare at her ample bosom straining against the confines of her top. "I'm looking forward to getting those new milking machines up and running." Tita returned his smile, her opalescent eyes sparkling with mirth. "Oh, I have a feeling you'll be quite popular with the ladies here. We Sorbons are known across the galaxy for our insatiable appetites." She winked suggestively before gesturing for him to follow. "Come, let me show you to your quarters." As they navigated the gleaming corridors of the station, Brad couldn't help but notice the abundance of attractive Sorbonne females milling about, their voluptuous figures and exotic beauty a feast for the eyes. Everywhere he looked, he saw full, heavy breasts and curvy hips, barely constrained by the clingy material of their uniforms. "I have to ask," Brad said, curiosity getting the better of him, "is it true that Sorbonne women are in a constant state of, lactation?" Tita finished, clearly amused by his bashfulness. "Why, yes, it's one of our most notable biological traits. Our bodies are always producing an abundance of rich, nourishing milk. It's why this facility exists, to harvest and distribute our liquid gold across the stars." Brad nodded, trying to wrap his head around the concept. "And the milking process, is it voluntary?" Tita laughed, a tinkling sound that sent a shiver down Brad's spine. "Oh, absolutely. Being selected to work at Lactation is a great honor among my people. The chance to provide sustenance and pleasure to the galaxy is a privilege we take very seriously. Plus," she added with a sly grin, "the milking itself is quite enjoyable for us." Brad felt his face flush at the implications, his mind conjuring up images of shapely alien beauties in the throes of ecstasy as the machines worked their magic. He quickly pushed those thoughts aside, reminding himself that he was here to do a job, not indulge in interspecies fantasies. As they arrived at his quarters, Tita placed a delicate hand on his arm, her touch electric even through the fabric of his jumpsuit. "I'll leave you to get settled in. Tomorrow we'll begin your orientation and introduce you to the milking facilities. I have a feeling you're going to be very popular around here, Brad Davis." With that, she sauntered off, leaving Brad alone with his thoughts and a growing sense of anticipation. He had a feeling this job was going to be unlike anything he'd ever experienced before. The next morning, Brad found himself standing in the heart of Lactastation's milking complex, surrounded by gleaming chrome machines and a bevy of beautiful Sorbonne workers. The air was thick with the sweet, creamy scent of freshly expressed milk, and everywhere he looked, he saw bare, bountiful breasts being attended to by the high-tech apparatus. "Impressive, isn't it?" Tita said, sidling up next to him. She was wearing an even more revealing outfit today, a shimmering gossamer robe that left little to the imagination. "Our milking machines are state-of-the-art, designed for maximum efficiency and pleasure." Brad nodded, trying to keep his eyes focused on the equipment and not the tantalizing expanses of lavender flesh on display. "I can see that, but you mentioned some of the units were malfunctioning?" Tita sighed, her ample bosom heaving with emotion. "Yes, unfortunately. We've been having issues with the suction regulators on some of the older models. They're just not providing the level of stimulation our ladies require." She led him over to one of the problematic machines, where a stunning Sorbonne with pale blue skin and fiery red hair was waiting patiently, her generous breasts already hooked up to the apparatus. "This is Nylera, one of our top producers. She's been having trouble reaching her usual output levels with this unit." Nylera looked up at Brad with smoldering bright blue eyes, her full lips curving into a seductive smile. Well, hello there, handsome. I certainly hope you can fix my little problem. I've been feeling so unfulfilled lately. Brad swallowed hard, trying to ignore the way his jumpsuit was suddenly feeling a bit too tight. I'll do my best, ma'am. Let me take a look at the machine. As he set to work examining the milking unit's components, he could feel Nalira's gaze boring into him, her eyes roaming hungrily over his muscular form. Every now and then, she would let out a little moan or gasp as the machine suckled at her breasts, sending jolts of electricity straight to Brad's groin. Your hands look so strong, Nalira purred as he made some adjustments to the suction settings. I bet they could work wonders on more than just machines. Brad nearly dropped his tools at her brazen words, his face burning with a mixture of embarrassment and arousal. I'm just here to fix the equipment, ma'am. Nalira laughed, a low, sultry sound that made Brad's knees go weak. Of course you are, sugar, but there's no reason we can't mix a little pleasure with business, is there? Before Brad could formulate a response, Taida intervened, placing a calming hand on Nalira's shoulder. Now, let's not overwhelm our guest on his first day. I'm sure Brad will have plenty of opportunities to get better acquainted with our lovely ladies as he settles in. Nalira pouted but relented, leaning back in her milking chair with a sigh. Fine, but don't think I'll forget about you, handsome. We Sorbons always get what we want in the end. Brad just nodded mutely, his head spinning with the whirlwind of sensations and emotions coursing through him. As he returned to his work, he couldn't shake the feeling that this job was going to be a lot more complicated and a lot more exciting than he'd ever imagined. Little did he know, his adventures on Lactation were only just beginning. As Brad settled into his new role on Lactation, he quickly realized that his interactions with the alluring Sorbon women were going to be a constant source of both pleasure and frustration. Everywhere he went, he was met with sultry glances, coy smiles, and not-so-subtle invitations to explore the more intimate aspects of Sorbonne culture. One particularly memorable encounter occurred when he was called to repair a malfunctioning milking machine in the private quarters of a stunning Sorbonne named Xavier. With skin the color of ripe peaches and eyes like molten gold, she was a vision of exotic beauty that left Brad weak in the knees. Well, hello there, Xavier purred as she opened the door, her voluptuous figure barely contained by a sheer silky robe. I've been waiting for you, handsome. Brad swallowed hard, trying to keep his eyes focused on her face and not the tantalizing glimpses of her generous curves. I'm here to fix your milking machine, ma'am. I understand it's been giving you some trouble. Xavier laughed, a throaty sound that sent shivers down Brad's spine. Oh, it's not the only thing that's been giving me trouble, she said, stepping closer and trailing a finger down his chest. I've been feeling so unfulfilled lately. I think I need a strong, capable man like you to help me out. Brad's heart raced as he fought to maintain his composure. I'm not sure that's part of my job description, ma'am, he managed to stammer out. Xavier pouted, her full lips glistening invitingly. But surely a big, strong human like you can handle a little extra milking? She pressed her body against his, her soft breast cushioning his chest as she looked up at him with smoldering eyes. Brad's resolve was rapidly crumbling under the onslaught of her sensual charms. It took every ounce of willpower he possessed to gently disentangle himself from her embrace and step back, putting some much-needed distance between them. I'm flattered, Xavier, he said, his voice rough with barely suppressed desire. But I'm here to do a job, and I don't want to take advantage of the situation. Let me fix your machine, and then I'll be on my way. Xavier sighed dramatically but relented, leading him into her quarters where the malfunctioning milking unit awaited. As Brad set to work, he could feel her eyes on him, her gaze caressing his body like a physical touch. You know, she said, lounging on a nearby chaise, we Sorbons believe that pleasure is meant to be shared. There's no shame in indulging our desires, especially with someone as gifted as you. Brad nearly choked on his own tongue at her bold words, his hands faltering on the delicate machinery. I appreciate the offer, he managed to say, but I don't think it would be appropriate. I'm here as a professional, not a lover, Xavier finished for him, a wicked gleam in her eye. Oh, but you could be both, Brad. I can see the hunger in your eyes, the way your body responds to mine. Why deny yourself the pleasure we could share? Brad took a deep, steadying breath, trying to clear his head of the intoxicating fog of lust that threatened to overwhelm him. Because it wouldn't be right, he said firmly. I'm not going to take advantage of you or any of the other women here. That's not the kind of man I am. Xavier studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then to his surprise, she smiled. A genuine, warm smile that lit up her whole face. You're a rare breed, Brad Davis, she said softly. A man of honor and integrity. I can respect that. She rose from the chaise and approached him, but this time there was no seduction in her movements. Instead, she placed a gentle hand on his cheek, her touch sweet and almost reverent. I hope you find what you're looking for here on Lactation, she said. And if you ever change your mind about indulging, just know that my door is always open. With that, she stepped back and allowed him to finish his work in peace. As Brad packed up his tools and prepared to leave, he couldn't help but feel a pang of regret for what might have been. But he knew in his heart that he had made the right choice. He was here to do a job, not to succumb to the temptations of the flesh, no matter how alluring they might be. Still, as he made his way back to his quarters, he couldn't shake the feeling that his resolve was going to be tested again and again in the days to come. The Sorbonne women were relentless in their pursuit of pleasure, and he was only human after all. He could only hope that he would be strong enough to resist their charms, and that, somewhere along the way, he might find a deeper connection that went beyond mere physical desire. As he lay in bed that night, his mind swirling with thoughts of lavender skin and smoldering eyes, Brad wondered what the future held for him on this strange, sensual world among the stars. Little did he know that his greatest challenge and his greatest joy was yet to come. As the days turned into weeks on Lactation, Brad found himself settling into a comfortable routine. His work on the milking machines kept him busy, and he had to admit that he was starting to enjoy the constant attention from the beautiful Sorbonne women, even if he couldn't quite bring himself to act on their flirtatious advances. One day, while working on a particularly stubborn machine, Brad found himself paired up with Nilira, the fiery-haired beauty he had encountered on his first day. She seemed to take great delight in teasing him, brushing up against him accidentally as he worked and making suggestive comments about his strong, capable hands. You know, Brad, she purred, leaning in close as he tinkered with the machine's control panel. I bet those hands of yours could work wonders on more than just machines. I'd love to feel them on my body, exploring every inch of my curves. Brad felt his face flush at her bold words, his heart racing as he tried to focus on the task at hand. I'm flattered, Nilira, he managed to say, his voice slightly strained, but I'm here to work, not to explore. Nilira laughed, a rich, throaty sound that sent shivers down his spine. Oh, but why can't you do both? Life is too short to deny yourself the pleasures of the flesh, especially when they're being offered so freely. She reached out and ran a finger down his chest, her touch electric even through the fabric of his jumpsuit. Brad swallowed hard, his resolve wavering in the face of her sensual onslaught. Just then, the machine he was working on let out a loud, angry beep, and before he could react, a jet of warm, sweet-smelling milk sprayed out from one of the nozzles, drenching him from head to toe. Nilira burst out laughing as Brad sputtered and wiped the milk from his eyes, his jumpsuit clinging to his muscular frame like a second skin. Oh my, she gasped between giggles. It looks like the machine got a little too excited. Or maybe it just couldn't resist the temptation of your delicious body. Brad couldn't help but laugh along with her, the absurdity of the situation cutting through the tension that had been building between them. I guess I should have been more careful, he said ruefully, plucking at his soaked jumpsuit. I'm going to need a shower after this. Nilira's eyes sparkled with mischief as she stepped closer, reaching out to run a finger through the milk dripping down his chest. I could help you with that, she murmured, bringing her finger to her lips and licking it clean with a sensual swirl of her tongue. I'm very good at cleaning up messes. Brad's breath caught in his throat as he watched her, his body reacting to her touch and her words in a way that was impossible to ignore. Nilira, he said hoarsely, I don't think that's a good idea. She pouted, her full lips glistening with milk. But why not? We're both adults, and it's clear that we want each other. Why fight it? Brad closed his eyes, taking a deep breath as he tried to gather his thoughts. Because I don't want to complicate things, he said at last. I like you, Nilira, and I'm attracted to you, but I'm here to do a job. If we cross that line, it could make things awkward between us, and I don't want that. Nilira was silent for a long moment, studying him with an unreadable expression. Then to his surprise, she smiled. a genuine, warm smile that lit up her whole face. "You're a good man, Brad Davis," she said softly, "a rare breed. I can respect your decision even if I don't entirely agree with it." She reached out and took his hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "But just so you know, my offer stands. If you ever change your mind, I'll be here, ready and willing." With that, she turned and sashayed away, leaving Brad alone with his thoughts in his milk-soaked jumpsuit. He let out a long, shaky breath, his heart still pounding from the intensity of their encounter. As he cleaned himself up as best he could and got back to work, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between them. Nalira's words and her touch had awakened something inside him, a hunger that he had been trying to ignore ever since he arrived on Lactation Station. He knew that he couldn't give in to it, not if he wanted to maintain his professionalism and his integrity. But as the days went on and the flirtatious encounters with the Sorbonne women continued, he found himself wondering how long he could hold out against their seductive charms. And deep down, in a part of himself that he barely dared to acknowledge, he found himself hoping that maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't have to hold out forever. That somewhere among the stars, he might find a love that was worth risking everything for. Only time would tell if that hope would be realized, or if he would succumb to the temptations of this strange, sensual world and lose himself entirely. Brad was in the middle of a routine maintenance check on one of the milking machines when Nalira burst into the room, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Brad!" she exclaimed, bouncing on her toes in a way that made her ample bosom jiggle enticingly. "I have the most wonderful news." Brad straightened up, wiping his hands on a rag as he turned to face her. "What's got you so excited?" he asked, trying not to let his gaze linger too long on her curves. Nalira grinned, clasping her hands together in front of her chest. "I've been chosen to participate in the annual Lactation Station milking contest," she said, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm. "It's a huge honor, and the winner gets a prestigious award and a promotion to head milker." Brad raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "A milking contest? How does that work?" Nalira leaned in closer, her eyes shining with anticipation. "Each contestant has to produce as much milk as possible in a single session," she explained. "The one who yields the most wins. It's a test of both quantity and quality, and it requires a lot of preparation and training." She reached out and took Brad's hand, her touch sending a jolt of electricity through his body. "That's where you come in," she said, her voice lowering to a purr. "I want you to help me train for the contest. With your expertise in milking machines and your personal touch, I know I can win." Brad swallowed hard, his heart pounding at the thought of working so closely with Nalira. "I'm not sure that's a good idea," he said hesitantly. "I don't want to do anything that might be seen as inappropriate." Nalira pouted, her full lips glistening invitingly. "But Brad," she wheedled, "this is important to me. And besides, it's not like we'd be doing anything wrong. You'd just be helping me adjust my machine settings and monitoring my progress. It's purely professional." She stepped closer, her body brushing against his in a way that made it hard for him to think straight. "Please, Brad," she whispered, her breath hot against his ear. "I need you." Brad closed his eyes, taking a deep breath as he tried to gather his resolve. He knew that agreeing to help Nalira would be crossing a line, one that he had been trying so hard to maintain ever since he arrived on Lactation Station. But the thought of spending more time with her, of being able to touch her and guide her through the milking process, it was too tempting to resist. "All right," he said at last, his voice rough with barely contained desire. "I'll help you train for the contest. But we have to keep things professional, Nalira. No funny business." Nalira grinned, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Of course, Brad," she said, her tone suggesting that she had no intention of keeping things entirely professional. "I promise to be on my best behavior." And so over the next few weeks, Brad and Nalira worked closely together to prepare for the milking contest. They spent long hours in the milking chambers, adjusting the machine's settings and monitoring Nalira's output. Brad found himself becoming more and more fascinated by the process, marveling at the way Nalira's body responded to the gentle suction and pulsation of the machines. As they worked, their flirtatious banter began to take on a deeper, more intimate tone. Nalira would lean in close as Brad made adjustments to her machine, her breath hot against his neck as she whispered suggestive comments in his ear. Brad found himself responding in kind, his hands lingering on her skin as he helped her into position, his voice lowering to a husky murmur as he praised her progress. One day, as they were taking a break between milking sessions, Nylira turned to Brad with a serious expression on her face. "Brad," she said softly, "I want you to know how much I appreciate your help. You've been so patient and understanding, even when I've been difficult." Brad smiled, reaching out to brush a strand of hair from her face. "You're not difficult, Nylira," he said gently. "You're passionate and determined, and that's what I admire about you." Nylira's eyes widened, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "You admire me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Brad nodded, his heart pounding as he realized the truth of his words. "I do," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I admire your strength, your beauty, your intelligence. Everything about you." Nylira was silent for a long moment, her eyes searching his face as if looking for something. Then, slowly, she leaned in and pressed her lips to his in a soft, tender kiss. Brad's eyes fluttered closed as he returned the kiss, his hands coming up to cup her face as he poured all of his pent-up desire and affection into the embrace. Nylira melted against him, her body molding to his as she deepened the kiss, her tongue sliding against his in a sensual dance. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing heavily, their faces flushed with passion. "Brad," Nylira whispered, her eyes shining with emotion. I think I'm falling in love with you." Brad's heart soared at her words, a grin spreading across his face as he pulled her into his arms. "I'm falling in love with you too, Nylira," he said, his voice rough with joy. "I never thought I'd find someone like you, someone who makes me feel so alive and so complete." They stayed like that for a long moment, holding each other close as they basked in the glow of their newfound love. Then, reluctantly, they pulled apart, knowing that they still had work to do. "Come on," Brad said, taking Nylira's hand and leading her back to the milking chamber. "Let's get you ready for that contest. With my help, you're going to blow them all away." Nylira grinned, her eyes sparkling with determination and affection. "With you by my side, Brad," she said, "I feel like I can do anything." And as they set to work, their hearts full of love and their minds focused on the task at hand, Brad knew that he had found something truly special on Lactation. Not just a job or a chance to explore the wonders of the galaxy, but a love that would last a lifetime. He couldn't wait to see what the future held for him and Nylira, but one thing was for sure. With her by his side, he could face anything the universe threw at them. The day of the milking contest arrived, and the entire Lactarus station was buzzing with excitement. Brad woke up early, his heart pounding with anticipation as he thought about the challenges that lay ahead. He knew that Nylira was nervous, but he also knew that she was more than ready for this moment. As he made his way to the milking chambers, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and affection for the beautiful Sorbonne woman who had stolen his heart. Over the past few weeks, as they had worked together to prepare for the contest, he had fallen deeper and deeper in love with her. Her passion, her determination, her kind heart. Everything about her drew him in like a moth to a flame. When he arrived at the chambers, he found Nylira already there, pacing back and forth with a nervous energy. She looked up as he entered, her eyes widening with relief and joy as she saw him. "Brad!" she exclaimed, running over to him and throwing her arms around his neck. "I'm so glad you're here. I don't think I could do this without you." Brad hugged her back, breathing in the sweet scent of her hair as he held her close. "You've got this, Nylira," he said, his voice filled with confidence and affection. "You've worked so hard, and you're more than ready. I believe in you." Nylira pulled back, her eyes shining with emotion as she looked up at him. "Thank you, Brad," she said softly, "for everything. I couldn't have done this without your help and support." Brad smiled, leaning down to press a gentle kiss to her forehead. "I'll always be here for you, Nylira," he said. "No matter what happens today, I'm proud of you, and I love you." Nylira's eyes widened at his words, a slow smile spreading across her face. "I love you too, Brad. You don't," she said, her voice filled with wonder and joy, more than anything. They stayed like that for a long moment, lost in each other's eyes, until the sound of the other contestants arriving broke them out of their reverie. Reluctantly, they pulled apart, knowing that they had to focus on the task at hand. As the contest began, Brad stayed by Nylira's side, offering words of encouragement and support as she took her place at her milking machine. He watched in awe as she began to produce milk at an astonishing rate, her body responding to the gentle suction and pulsation of the machine like a finely tuned instrument. The other contestants were impressive as well, their own machines humming and whirring as they worked to produce as much milk as possible. But as the minutes ticked by, it became clear that Nylira was in a league of her own. Her output was consistently higher than anyone else's, and the quality of her milk was unparalleled. As the final minutes of the contest approached, Brad could feel the excitement and tension in the room reaching a fever pitch. The other contestants were starting to look nervous, their eyes darting back and forth between their own machines and Nylira's. But Nylira herself remained focused and determined, her eyes fixed on the task at hand. When the final buzzer sounded, signaling the end of the contest, there was a moment of silence as everyone held their breath. Then slowly, the results began to appear on the large screen at the front of the room. Brad's heart was pounding as he watched the numbers climb higher and higher, until finally Nylira's name appeared at the top of the list. She had won, and by a significant margin. The room erupted into cheers and applause, with the other contestants rushing over to congratulate Nylira on her victory. But Nylira only had eyes for Brad, her face splitting into a grin of pure joy as she ran into his arms. "I did it," she exclaimed, her voice muffled against his chest. "I can't believe it." Brad laughed, spinning her around in a circle as he hugged her tight. "I knew you could do it," he said, his voice filled with pride and love. "You were amazing out there, Nylira. Absolutely amazing." As the cheers and congratulations continued to pour in, Brad and Nylira found themselves swept up in the celebration. There were interviews with the press, photo opportunities with the other contestants, and even a special ceremony where Nylira was presented with her award and officially promoted to head milker. Through it all, Brad stayed by her side, his heart swelling with love and pride as he watched her bask in the glow of her achievement. He knew that this was just the beginning for them, that there were so many more adventures and challenges waiting for them in the future. But for now, all that mattered was this moment and the love that they shared. As the celebration began to wind down, Brad took Nylira's hand and led her away from the crowds, towards a private milking chamber that he had prepared just for them. "I have a surprise for you," he said, his voice low and filled with promise. "A way to celebrate your victory in a more intimate setting." Nylira's eyes widened, a slow smile spreading across her face as she caught his meaning. "Lead the way, my love," she said, her voice husky with desire. As they entered the chamber, Brad couldn't help but marvel at the beauty of the woman before him. Nylira was glowing with happiness and love, her skin flushed and her eyes sparkling with anticipation. He reached out and pulled her into his arms, his lips finding hers in a deep, passionate kiss. Nylira melted against him, her body molding to his as she returned the kiss with equal fervor. They took their time undressing each other, savoring each brush of skin against skin, each gasp and moan of pleasure. When they were finally naked, Brad lifted Nylira into his arms and carried her over to the milking machine, his heart pounding with desire and love. He helped her into position, his hands gentle and sure as he adjusted the machine's settings to her liking. Then, with a final kiss to her lips, he stepped back and watched as the machine began to work its magic. Nylira's eyes fluttered closed, her head falling back as the gentle suction and pulsation of the machine sent waves of pleasure coursing through her body. Brad watched in awe as her milk began to flow, the creamy liquid spilling from her breasts in a steady stream. Unable to resist any longer, he stepped forward and took her into his arms, his lips finding hers in a deep, passionate kiss. They made love there in the heart of the milking chamber, their bodies moving together in a dance of love and desire. As they reached their peak together, crying out each other's names in ecstasy, Brad knew that he had found his forever. Here in the arms of this incredible woman, he had found a love that would last a lifetime. And as they lay together in the afterglow, their bodies intertwined and their hearts beating as one, Brad knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. With Nylira by his side, he could conquer the universe. The invitation to represent Lactation's station at the Intergalactic Milk Expo on Sorbonne Prime came as a surprise to both Brad and Nylira. They had been so caught up in the aftermath of Nylira's victory at the milking contest and their newfound love that they had almost forgotten about the wider galaxy beyond the station's walls. But as they stood together on the observation deck, looking out at the swirling colors of the nebula that surrounded Sorbonne Prime, they couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and wonder. This was a chance to explore a new world, to share their love and their passion with the rest of the galaxy. As they prepared for their journey, Brad couldn't help but marvel at how far they had come. Just a few short months ago, he had been a lonely technician, adrift in a sea of stars. But now he had found his purpose, his home, and his soulmate in Nylira. The journey to Sorbonne Prime was a whirlwind of activity, with Brad and Nylira spending long hours in meetings with station officials and representatives from the Sorbonne government. They discussed everything from the logistics of transporting Lactation's milk to the cultural protocols they would need to follow while on Sorbonne Prime. But through it all, Brad and Nylira found time to steal moments alone together, to bask in the glow of their love and to dream about their future. They talked about their hopes and fears, their dreams and desires, and the life they wanted to build together. When they finally arrived on Sorbonne Prime, they were greeted with a level of pomp and circumstance that took their breath away. The Sorbons had spared no expense in welcoming their guests, with lavish banquets, elaborate ceremonies, and grand tours of the planet's most stunning landmarks. Brad and Nylira were swept up in the whirlwind of activity, their senses overwhelmed by the sights, sounds, and sensations of this alien world. They marveled at the towering spires of the capital city, the shimmering lakes of liquid crystal, and the lush, bioluminescent forests that seemed to glow with a life of their own. But even amidst the grandeur and the spectacle, Brad and Nylira never lost sight of their mission. They were here to represent Lactation, to showcase the incredible work that was being done there, and to forge new partnerships with the wider galaxy. As they set up their booth at the Milk Expo, Brad couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. They had worked so hard to get here, to overcome the challenges and the obstacles that had stood in their way, and now they were ready to show the galaxy what they were made of. But as the expo got underway, Brad and Nylira began to notice a strange undercurrent of tension and unease. There were whispers and sideways glances, hushed conversations that seemed to stop abruptly whenever they approached. At first, as they tried to ignore it, focusing instead on the task at hand. But as the days wore on, the tension only seemed to grow. There were protests outside the expo hall, angry Sorbons waving signs and chanting slogans about the sanctity of their culture and the purity of their milk. And then one night, as Brad and Nylira were walking back to their hotel, they were confronted by a group of masked Sorbons who surrounded them, their eyes glinting with anger and hostility. "You don't belong here," one of them hissed, his voice dripping with venom. "You're defiling our culture, corrupting our women. Leave now, before it's too late." Brad stepped forward, his body tense and ready for a fight. But Nylira placed a gentle hand on his arm, her eyes filled with calm and determination. "We're not going anywhere," she said, her voice steady and clear. "We're here to build bridges, not walls, to show that love and cooperation can overcome any obstacle." The Sorbons hesitated, their resolve wavering in the face of Nylira's words. But before they could respond, a voice rang out from behind them. "Stand down," the voice said, calm but commanding. "These people are our guests, and they will be treated with the respect they deserve." The Sorbons turned to see a tall, regal-looking Sorbonne woman striding towards them, her eyes flashing with authority. She was dressed in flowing robes of shimmering silk, a circlet of glowing crystals adorning her brow. "I am Empress Zyla," she said, her voice echoing through the night air. "And I welcome you to Sorbonne Prime, Brad and Nylira of Lactation." Brad and Nylira bowed deeply, their hearts racing with a mixture of relief and awe. They had heard stories of the Empress, of her wisdom and her power, but to see her in person was something else entirely. "Thank you, Your Majesty," Nylira said, her voice trembling slightly. "We are honored to be here, and we hope to learn much from your people." The Empress smiled, her eyes softening with warmth and understanding. "And we have much to learn from you as well," she said. "Come, let us retire to the palace. There is much to discuss." As they followed the Empress through the winding streets of the capital city, Brad and Nylira couldn't help but feel a sense of hope and excitement. They had faced their first challenge on Sorbonne Prime, and they had emerged stronger and more united than ever. But they knew that there would be more challenges to come, more obstacles to overcome. The traditionalists who opposed their presence would not give up easily, and there were still many cultural and political tensions to navigate. But as they walked hand in hand, their hearts beating as one, Brad and Nylira knew that they could face anything together. Their love was a force to be reckoned with, a light that could guide them through even the darkest of times. And as they entered the palace, ready to begin the next chapter of their adventure, they knew that they were exactly where they were meant to be. Together on the front lines of a new era of intergalactic cooperation and understanding. The expo itself was a resounding success, with Lactation Station's milk receiving rave reviews from the Sorbonne public and the intergalactic press. Brad and Nilira worked tirelessly to showcase the unique properties and flavors of their milk, hosting tastings and demonstrations that left the crowds in awe. But even as they basked in the glow of their success, they never forgot the deeper purpose of their mission. They used their platform to speak out about the importance of interspecies cooperation and understanding, to show that love and compassion could transcend any barrier. And as they stood together on the stage, accepting the award for Best New Milk Product, Brad and Nilira knew that they had achieved something truly special. They had not only brought glory to Lactation Station, but they had also forged a new path for the future of the galaxy. As they looked out at the cheering crowds, their hearts swelling with pride and joy, they knew that this was only the beginning. There were still so many worlds to explore, so many people to meet, so many adventures to be had. But no matter where their journey took them, they knew that they would always have each other. Their love was a constant, a guiding light that would never fade. And as they stepped off the stage, ready to face whatever the future held, Brad and Nilira knew that they were ready for anything. Together they could conquer the universe, one milky adventure at a time. The invitation to participate in the Intergalactic Milk Championships came as a surprise to Brad and Nilira, but it was one they couldn't refuse. This was a chance to showcase the skills and talents of the Sorbonne milkers from Lactation Station on the grandest stage of all, to prove once and for all that their milk was the best in the galaxy. But as they began to assemble their team, Brad and Nilira quickly realized that this would be no easy task. The championships were known for their fierce competitiveness and cutthroat tactics, with teams from all across the galaxy vying for the top prize. They spent long hours poring over data and scouting reports, looking for the Sorbonne milkers who had the perfect combination of skill, stamina, and heart. They held grueling tryouts and training sessions, pushing their team to the limits of their abilities. Through it all, Brad and Nilira's love for each other only grew stronger. They were a perfect team, both in and out of the milking chambers, their bond unbreakable and their passion unquenchable. As the championships drew closer, the tension on Lactation Station reached a fever pitch. The Sorbonne milkers were nervous but excited, their eyes shining with determination and pride. They knew that they were representing not just themselves, but their entire species, and they were determined to make Brad and Nilira proud. When they finally arrived at the championship venue, a massive space station orbiting a distant star, Brad and Nilira were blown away by the scale and grandeur of it all. The station was a marvel of engineering and design, with sleek, curving lines and gleaming surfaces that seemed to glow with an inner light. As they made their way to their assigned quarters, they were greeted by a dizzying array of humanoid alien species from all across the galaxy, each with their own unique features and milk-producing capabilities. There were the tall and slender Elysians, with their shimmering golden skin and honey-sweet milk, the curvaceous and vibrant Orions, whose milk was said to have aphrodisiac properties, and the mysterious and alluring Nyx, with their dark, inky skin and milk that glowed with an ethereal light. "Wow, I've never seen so many different kinds of milkers in one place before," Brad marveled, his eyes wide with wonder. Nilira grinned, squeezing his hand. "And they've never seen a milker quite like you before, my love. You're going to blow them all away." But amidst all the chaos and confusion, Brad and Nilira remained focused on their goal. They knew that they had the best team in the galaxy, and they were determined to prove it. The championships began with a bang, with teams from all across the galaxy competing in a dizzying array of milking challenges. There were speed milking contests where the fastest milkers could fill a tank in mere seconds, endurance challenges where milkers had to maintain a steady flow for hours on end, and even artistic milking displays, where the most creative and skilled milkers could create intricate patterns and designs with their milk. Through it all, the Lactation Station team performed brilliantly, their skills and teamwork shining through in every event. They quickly rose to the top of the leaderboard, earning the respect and admiration of their fellow competitors. But as the championships wore on, Brad and Nilira began to notice something strange. There were whispers and rumors of sabotage and foul play, of teams using illegal performance-enhancing drugs and hidden cybernetic implants to gain an unfair advantage. At first, they tried to ignore the rumors, focusing instead on their own team's performance. But as the evidence began to mount, they knew that they couldn't sit idly by. They launched their own investigation, working tirelessly to uncover the truth behind the championships. They interviewed other teams and pored over security footage, piecing together a disturbing picture of corruption and deceit. What they discovered shocked them to their core. The championships were being manipulated by a shadowy organization known as the Milky Way Cartel, a group of wealthy and powerful individuals who saw the championships as nothing more than a means to line their own pockets. The cartel had been bribing officials, sabotaging equipment, and even threatening the lives of competitors who refused to play by their rules. They had no regard for the sanctity of the sport or the well-being of the milkers themselves, seeing them as nothing more than tools to be used and discarded. Brad and Nalira knew that they had to act fast. They gathered their evidence and presented it to the championship officials, demanding an immediate investigation and the disqualification of any teams found to be cheating. At first, the officials were reluctant to act, fearing the power and influence of the Milky Way cartel. But as more and more teams came forward with their own stories of abuse and exploitation, the tide began to turn. In a dramatic showdown, Brad and Nalira confronted the leaders of the cartel, exposing their crimes for all the galaxy to see. "You have no right to treat these milkers like commodities, like objects to be bought and sold," Brad declared, his voice ringing with righteous fury. "They are living, breathing beings with hopes and dreams of their own, and they deserve to be treated with respect and dignity." The cartel members were arrested and stripped of their ill-gotten gains, and the championships were declared null and void. But even in the face of such adversity, the Lactation terrorist station team refused to give up. They knew that they had earned their place at the top through hard work and dedication, and they were determined to prove it once and for all. In a final, grueling day of competition, the Lactation station team put on a stunning display of skill and artistry, their milkers working in perfect harmony to create a dazzling array of flavors and textures. The crowds were mesmerized by their performance, and when the final scores were tallied, there was no doubt in anyone's mind who the true champions were. As Brad and Nalira stood on the podium, accepting the championship trophy and the adulation of the crowds, they knew that they had achieved something truly special. They had not only proven the superiority of Lactation Station's milk, but they had also struck a blow against corruption and injustice, standing up for the rights and dignity of milkers everywhere. And as they celebrated their victory that night, their bodies intertwined in a passionate embrace, Brad and Nalira knew that their love had been the true key to their success. Through all the challenges and obstacles they had faced, their bond had only grown stronger, their passion more intense. As Nalira was bringing Brad to edge, her milk-swollen breast bouncing with every movement, they lost themselves in the pleasure and the joy of the moment. They had come so far together, from strangers to soulmates, and they knew that this was only the beginning of their journey. With each gasping breath and shuddering climax, they reaffirmed their love for each other, their commitment to their shared dreams and desires. They had proven that, together, they could overcome any obstacle, conquer any challenge. "I love you, Brad," Nalira whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I love you more than anything in this galaxy or any other." "I love you too, Nalira," Brad replied, his heart swelling with joy and gratitude. "You are my everything, my reason for being. I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you, exploring the wonders of the universe and making sweet, sweet milk together." And as they lay in each other's arms, basking in the afterglow of their lovemaking, Brad and Nalira knew that they had found their true calling in life. They were the champions of Lactation Station, the defenders of the Sorbonne way of life, and the ambassadors of love and compassion to the wider galaxy. They knew that there would be more challenges to come, more battles to be fought and won. But as long as they had each other, they knew that they could face anything the universe could throw at them. And so as the stars twinkled overhead and the galaxy spun on, Brad and Nalira held each other close, their hearts full of love and their minds full of dreams. They had found their place in the universe, and they knew that together they could make it a better place, one milky adventure at a time.